Hey guys, StarCraft here, and Mark Millar. What can be said about Mark Millar? He's an interesting guy who, depending on who you ask, either they say he's all shock, no substance, or either very imaginative mind, or whatever you. I'm one of those guys who kind of falls a little in between. Depending on his project, there are so many times where he does some incredible ideas. He is up there with like Morrison as far as imaginative minds go. But at the same time, depends on the type of story he's executing, and sometimes he will go for a little bit more shock value than anything else. Sometimes it works, other times it might not. One book I'm not covering, but I can definitely tell you is a prime example of shock value, and that's The Unfunnies. Good lord, I'm glad I'm not talking about that one, because just look it up. Just look up The Unfunnies. That one, I mean, I'm not saying it's shit. It's not shit, but if you want pure shock value, look no further than The Unfunnies. Just think Cool World, if it was just darkness-induced apathy up the wazoo, where basically everything goes wrong in that, and it is good night, is all I can say. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the stuff that I do have from him. And let's get started right away with some of his DC stuff. Let's first look at his stuff he's worked on with Morrison, such as Aztec, the Ultimate Man. I talked about this during Grant Morrison, so I'm just going to sum it up a bit. Aztec was a hero the two created, meant to be an Aztec-based hero, the Ultimate Man, as he goes by. And it was a very interesting character that didn't last that long. I mean, it lasted pretty long enough to get this pretty good size of a trade. And Morrison still felt they had a good character to tell, so he put him in JLA and eventually was able to resolve everything in JLA. Then Millar did a few stories here and there during JLA, just a few things. I'm not going to go over them too much. They were fill-in stories for the most part, but not bad stuff. I don't have much of his other DC work. I do not have much of his like Superman adventures, although from what I understand, he writes a great Superman. And he's one of those, like Morrison, who really loves Superman. In fact, there's something I didn't mention about in Morrison's stuff, but Millar, and Mark Waid, and I think there was a fourth person, I forget, but definitely those three all worked on well with a case in a thing for Superman that was meant to reboot him and make him back to the Silver Age. They would have gotten rid of the wedding, would have gotten rid of so much stuff, put all the genies back in the bottle, and just started going, make it almost everything how it was pre-crisis, but with modern tellings. This was done during a point when Mike Carlin was away, and when Mike Carlin got word of it, he was pissed, from what I understand. Now, this is just all I've heard. I could be wrong. Mark, if you watch this, you may be correct on it, but from what I understand, there was a boycott then put on all three of them. Mark Carlin, which this one I can definitely confirm, does not like when people just screw with him behind his back. Jeff Loeb learned that the hard way when he, despite working with another editor, went right behind Carlin's back and tried to put in a Superman robot in his Challenge of the Unknown story. And Carlin said those things don't exist anymore, and he wanted to keep a tight ship on Superman. Went behind his back, did not like it. And he did not like the idea of someone trying to just throw out everything he worked on just like that. And so, from what I understand though, Millar and Morrison, I believe, were able to still make amends with Carlin eventually. And that's why the boycott didn't last time. But Waid, on the other hand, being Waid, it seemed like it lasted well through until Carlin stepped down from Superman. You had Eddie Berganza, and eventually Waid was able to do other stuff with Superman. Again, from what I understand, I could be way off base, but that's what I've heard. And Waid being Waid, you're really not surprised, given his love for Superman. But from what I also understand, is a bit of elements from all of those different stuff eventually turned up. Mark Waid was able to put it into Superman Birthright, and then Morrison was able to put a bunch of it into All-Star Superman. What did Mark Millar do? Superman Red Sun. This is one of my favorite Elseworlds. Because what I love best about this is that it does so much with Superman. And it just does Actually, hold on one second. Sorry about that. Just want to make sure I had space on my phone before I continue first. I don't know how long this is going to go. But anyway, as I was saying, his Superman with Superman Red Sun, it is that good. It takes, for example, one thing that Millar definitely likes out with Superman is playing him up as a god, where he is a god. He is this all-powerful being who doesn't, I wouldn't say he doesn't relate to humans, but in this case, they praise the best. This version of Superman looks at people not as people, but as things that need to be fixed. And that's an interesting way of putting it. And what I love most about it is, yes, he believes in the communist idea. He believes in all that Stalinism, everything about that, about the Soviet Union way, about the big state and everything, about everyone working, all of that stuff. But he's still a good man. It's still the same Superman. He's not evil. They did not make this America good, Soviet Union bad. No, gray is what he loves, is his coloring. Not black and white, but very gray. And again, it's just so interesting just how everything plays out. But it also takes another notion, and I don't know if Millar intended this or not. It took the notion of when people ask, why can't Superman just save the day? Why can't he just fix all of our world's ills? He does that in this. And it becomes a dictatorship where he ends up having Superman robots, which end up being people who are lobotomized and turned into drones. And those who don't want to comply, they won't. And I also do love how Lex Luthor in this, it's basically Lex Luthor still. But he's on the good guy's side, and he does what he can. I love how with Lois, she's already married to Lex in this story, and eventually, even with Superman, while there's that sexual tension between them, she's married to Lex, she's loyal to Lex, and they're across the country, two different stories and two different nations. They can't be together. And I gotta also say, Dave Johns' artwork for the first half of this was very good, and Killian Plunkett, who did the other half of the artwork, is also very good, although I do like how they actually transitioned into each other. Even though the artworks are two very different styles, they made sure it did still ease into it. And just how many times they do different takes and everything. Like Wonder Woman is also believing the Soviet because now it's the strongest empire, so of course Themyscira sends her there. Batman was born as a Russian focus. You have their version of Lana is also someone who kind of convinced Superman what he had to do was right. And etc. You had Hal Jordan, you have Brainiac, you have so much. But I also do love how does Superman Lex stop Superman, make him realize the error of his ways? One letter with one simple message that breaks him down. Because in this point, he had to deal with a bottled city that he kept trying to deal with. Kind of like Kandor, but not. It was one Stalingrad, I think. But then what does Lex simply say is, why don't you put the whole planet in a bottle? And putting it in that way, Superman realized, what have I done doing all of this? Now the funniest thing of all though is, by the end of it, Lex is the one in charge then, and he does the exact same thing Superman does, but because he's human, Superman feels like, oh, that's fine. And it does feel a lot better than when Superman was doing it. There's no Superman robots, nothing like that, but at the same time, you still realize he's still doing the same thing. And then there's a big twist, which, okay, it's years now, but I'll just say this. There's no Krypton. Krypton doesn't exist in this universe. Superman's not from Krypton, that's why there's no kryptonite in it, but there's red solar energies. Superman, it's a time loop. Superman is a multi-generational descendant of Lex Luthor. That's why he's Kal-El, just an L, no E-L, and he was sent back in time. Not to the planet, but sent back in time, and he ends up landing in the Ukraine, and everything starts all over again. That I love as a twist. I know some other comic creators do not. I do. I think it's a brilliant twist, and yeah. What else can I say? It is one of the best Superman stories written that's in Elseworlds. And Superman, again, he's not evil. That's what I love best about it. He's not evil. He's just doing what he feels is best. What more can you want from Superman? Now let's get into his Marvel stuff. First things first, just to get away, I got this book, but mostly because it has the Fantastic Four stories that deal with the events that created, but also happened in between events of Marvel Zombies, where basically Ultimate Reed Richards and his family go to another universe. You think it's the 616 universe. In fact, they play it up, which I give Millar credit for that. But when he arrives, nope, full of zombies. And he basically sets it all up. And by the end of it, you have Magneto as a hero. You have that universe's Fantastic Four, who are the new Frightful Four, are there. Then later on, that's resolved, and then in a later story arc, we have then they're resolved as they're dealt with, and Doctor Doom actually saves the day, and yeah, it goes into that. And then I love this shot here because this fits in and around Robert Kirkman's Marvel Zombies, although it does kind of end on a cliffhanger that's never resolved. And even when it is resolved during I think it was Jonathan Hickman or someone did the Ultimate F4 or FF, and even in that case it said, oh, he killed them all, when it's like, so wait, is this another separate universe from the Marvel Zombies altogether? Makes no sense. But yeah, Mark Millar, he has an interesting handling on his versions anyway of the Fantastic Four. I don't own any of his when he did the main Fantastic Four, but even then I gotta say it's not the Fantastic Four for me. It's his own take. There's some stuff I find interesting on it. If it was his own self-contained universe, that'd be fine. But it being the mainstream one, it just didn't fit. That's all I can sadly say. But let's also get into, and actually the point, he also didn't finish it, unfortunately. And there was going to be an omnibus collecting, well, never happened. Which is why I never bought the trade. I was waiting for that omnibus, but it never came. And I don't think it ever will. I don't know. But anyway, then you have one of the big ones. The Ultimates 1 and 2. His take on the Ultimate versions of the Avengers. Not Ultimate Avengers, that's something else entirely I'll get to. But basically, you look at this as, what if the Avengers was one big summer blockbuster, no movies leading up to it? How would they introduce all of the characters into it? And, at least this one, it feels like that. That's exactly what it feels like. It feels like if it was a movie, and this is how the MCU could have, and there's why some elements are taken from this. This is probably if the MCU decided to just jump on in with an Avengers movie, that's what it would be. It gives enough characterization, still keeps it grounded and interesting. Some moments are a bit cringy, like you think on this A on my forehead stands for France? Yeah. Little funny fact, Brian Hitch, the artist, went to a comic convention in France not long after the issue came out. He and Mark Millar make fun of it in here. But you have the Chitauri instead of the Skrulls. I don't remember what the things behind that was. Hulk is their big first fight in the midway point, and I find it interesting, although then there's one issue about Mark Millar. I will also say it. Sometimes he will reduce characters, especially in the Ultimate stuff, down to their slanderization points. Like Hank Pym, oh, he's a white beater. Worst kind. He not only beats Chan, he sticks a whole bunch of ants on her. Now, I will give him credit though, it stakes. The ramifications of that do not go away. That's the other thing I do like this. The ramifications don't go away. But again, it does feel like he simplifies some of the characters a bit. Not too much, but a bit. But it's still enough time where, for most part, most people did enjoy these characters. And yeah, and I mean, granted, these characters are all assholes to each other. That more so than usual, and I get it. Millar also does that sometimes, but he has... Okay, I'll get to that later, but by this point, yeah, it's still an interesting... And then in the second one, this is where things kind of broaden a bit. The effects of the Ultimates existing, and after dealing stuff with the Hulk and happening, continue on. Eventually, we get to a big plan controlled by Loki. Yeah, basically, both these issues are supposed to be the entirety of the very first Avenger issue stretched out across all these. At least that's what I understand anyway. Because originally this was supposed to be one big epic, but they realized it was too big. But anyway, and then you have, basically another country trying to make their own soldiers, that leads to a war. And I will say, I did love how they play up with Thor, how you're like, wait, is he really a god or is he not? And it's not to the very end where we find out he is. I love that. And again, just some of the ideas in here are very, very well done. Brian Hitch's artwork for all this is amazing. And again, the characterization, like his Tony Stark, I actually like that. I mean, yes, he's a bit more of the drum, but that's something that I think Jeff Loeb overdid later on. But here, he's still an interesting character. Black Widow, unfortunately, straight on evil. Don't care for that. And yeah, but I still love it. It is great. It helped really push things forward for the Ultimate Universe in a lot of ways, and other people play off of this stuff. Then Jeff Loeb took over with Ultimate 3 and then Ultimatum, and I'll get to how Millar clearly reacted to that. Then you have Ultimate Galactus Trilogy. Now, if I do any Warren Ellis stuff, I'm really going to talk about this in more depth, but this was based off of Millar's ideas. Ellis was supposed to help out, but then Millar got really busy and I think ill at some point, so we couldn't work on it all, so Ellis just expanded on it. But Millar did work on at least one bit of the story. Let me just get to it. It was the Ultimate Vision prelude. One thing I like is you see this very male-looking Vision robot, but once it's able to gather up everything, turns out Vision is a chick in this universe. Hold on. Yep. I like that. I think that's a nice, clever twist. And I also like how Vision gives herself the cape just to be and to look a little flashy a little. And basically this version, she's the Silver Surfer. She's the herald, but to give a warning. Not to bring him, but to warn people ahead of time. And she did what she could, and she moved on. Again, if I talk about Warren Ellis, I will be talking about this in better detail. But I'll just say for what it is, this is a brilliant idea that I wish that he had, that Millar had worked on. It would have been different, obviously, but, you know. Then, it's Marvel Knight Spider-Man. One of my favorite Spider-Man arcs of all time. 12 issues with Terry Dodson and a bit Frank Cho artwork. And Millar gets Spidey. And this is a great story. It's all self-contained, but it also set changes. Like, this is where we got rid of Eddie Brockett's Venom for a decade or so, over a decade. And we had, in this case, the Mac Gargan Venom for a good length of time. And you had, but it also plays up the notion of, it's a bit cliche. Like, oh, Norman Osborn is captured, and you have Bendis to start up to this, but yeah, this is the first time Osborn has legitimately been arrested. And when you really think about it, that's a bit of a surprise, but you forget that. Aunt May's abducted, and it basically caused Peter to go topsy-turvy. Millar rejiggers some of the villains. He does a great Black Cat. Makes her vicious. He introduced some interesting concepts like, and something that he plays with a lot. These ultra conspiracies, like the fact that villains are sometimes manufactured to distract the heroes. And while it's an interesting concept and theory, but no one hardly ever played with it, the idea of corporations creating villains to try and distract the heroes so they don't ever find their real evils is a solid idea. And yeah, Matt Gargan finds out who that Spider-Man and who Peter is. And I actually love it how Gargan is just holding Spidey like, nope, don't threaten me, otherwise your hand is toast. It is, again, such very good writing in this. And then eventually leads to the Sinister 12. And I especially love how, for the first time, I think, in the entirety of the marriage, you actually have MJ telling off Felicia. And it was also the case where he really puts down into it with Peter and Felicia and MJ how, yeah, he chose MJ, even though Felicia's probably the one who understands him better because she knows how both lives go. And again, this is like if you were to pick one Spider-Man story to give to people, you could film in a little bit, but for the most part, you just give them one story. I go with this. This is everything you want or need in Spider-Man. I am not kidding. If I could only pick one book for Millar to sign, it would be this. It is, and even Stan Lee said, one of the best superhero sagas imaginable. Although he also admits he kind of became the introduction guy by this point, so take that for what you will, but it was still very damn good. And yeah, granted, it was a plot point that Millar set up that Peter David would be the only one to resolve. That one, it's funny enough, you can find on your own. But yeah, I love that. Then you have his first run with Wolverine, Enemy of the State, where the Hand and Hydra team up, abduct Wolverine, and turn him into a weapon. Throughout the first number of issues, Wolverine's a bad guy. And you're more focusing on the Marvel heroes and Elektra and all that, dealing with trying to stop him. There would later be a what if that would then show what if they didn't stop him, and it's a damn good one too. But throughout all this, I mean, you have great John Romita artwork, some of his best, if you ask me. And while it did kind of derail, oh, what was his name? The head of Hydra. I'm just completely blanking on his name right now, but it completely derailed him to the point where they did have to reveal, oh, that wasn't really him, that was a copy of him. But overall, though, again, it was so, the first half of it is really good. Just the idea of Wolverine being this ultimate killing machine. And afterwards, then it's had him trying to fix his mistake and bring down Hydra in the Hand. And for the most part, he does. And it is just so interesting. And again, they later will reveal, oh no, he didn't fully bring it up, but he did introduce a cool villain in the Gorgon, a guy who is the ultimate Hydra agent who can also turn people to stone with his eyes. Obviously, Gorgon. And so much so that Jonathan Hickman made sure to bring him back from the dead when he did his Secret Warriors run. What does that tell you? And yeah, again, very great action, great artwork. Plus, also, I love the little backup story and the one other issue that he did with a little input from Will Eisner, where basically Wolverine in a concentration camp. And one thing I will give Millar this: this was originally supposed to be a mini series, but he kept having difficulties. Like, how can I do this with Wolverine in a concentration camp? Still have this be spooky, or how he wanted to tell the story, but not feel like it's disrespecting. Then Will Eisner came up with a suggestion: don't have him speak. Go for a bit of one of those EC comic ghost story vibes. And when you think about it with Wolverine's healing, that actually works. And it does. It deals with this guy who's taken over this camp, the concentration camp, and basically feels like, I'm going to make an example of this guy who's just standing there. Next day, he's back again. Wait, what? How is he back again? And basically, it drives this head of the camp insane until he eventually kills himself. And then another one will eventually show up, and it's supposed to be a cycle. And basically, and it does a whole he's locked up in here with us when we first saw him, but in truth, we're locked in here with him. And he made one issue instead, and it was, you really want an EC comic vibe. Wolverine in this instance, it worked. It worked so well for one issue. And Eisner, that was a great idea. Even though he had no idea who Wolverine was, he knew what to do and gave Millar the suggestion and went with it. Next, it's a big one. Civil War, gotta talk about it. The concept for Civil War was very good, but there's a reason why people had problems with this. This would have worked fine as an ultimate event. In fact, from what I've heard, I think it was supposed to be, but then they decided to make it mainstream so they can shake things up. And it basically gets to the point where Millar got to pick what characters what side they were being on. Even if it made no sense in their stories or with their characters, he did it, and then basically other writers had to figure things out. And then you have it be, turns out the registration side were the good guys, and they see this whole thing is a bit pointless. Yada yada. Some of the conflicts were shoehorned. Again, it just feels like there's a reason why people like Damon Lindelof during Ultimate Hulk vs. Wolverine actually made a joke and had it be Ultimate Wolverine and Cap and Iron Man would be on the opposite sides. Ultimate Iron Man would find the registration idea to be ridiculous, and Ultimate Cap would be in favor of it. I find that hilarious, but again, if you take it on its own, ignoring all continuities, it can be a good story with some hiccups. The artwork, though, is still very good by Steve McNiven, but you can't be all political with this, and again, for what what's how it goes, it is what it is. Sorry, Mark. I don't know what else to say about that. It is what it is. That's it. But it's other time with mainstream Marvel. I do have Marvel's 1985 somewhere around here, but I can't find it anywhere. That's an interesting one where it's set in our world, 1985. A bunch of the DC and Marvel villains start coming to our universe, not long in between events of Secret Wars. This is what all the time done with his Fantastic Four run, and one other thing else I'll get to. And basically it's the idea of this person with its oldest power and imagination causing all this, and how does things play out in this little town. And I liked it as well. Again, I wish I could show it, but I can't find it anywhere, but it was really good. Then you have Old Man Logan. Probably one of the best Wolverine stories. The whole idea of this Mad Max, type of thing with a hint of the Clint Eastwood stuff with Wolverine, and then just some of the ideas like when you really think about it, all the villains in the Marvel Universe outnumber the heroes. And what if they truly teamed up and there was no status quo as God? They would take over. And we basically see how things play. It's, Wolverine and Hawkeye go from one end of the country to the other. And Wolverine is just a very tough, badass character. And all these different things of how things go is very clever. And then you have where it all begins. Hulk versus Wolverine at the very end, as he deals with the Hulk who's been driven insane. And yeah, for how this is, it's also really good. I mean, you probably know him speeding through a lot of the summaries here, but really, I could just summarize these things without going into all the details, but still tell you that it is just damn good. That's all I could say. Again, a lot of these just very clever concepts. And I also give this, I actually find, because I'm a Jubilee fan, the fact that Jubilee was the last one to hold out against Wolverine when he slaughters the X-Men. Sorry about that. That's my brother. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but, yeah. And Steve McNiven, still great artwork. Again, what else can I say? Now, the last Marvel bit. Ultimate Avengers, the omnibus that collects all of them, from Ultimate Avengers all the way up to New Ultimates versus Ultimate Avengers. And first of all, I love how it opens up. Nick Fury. What the fuck? I disappear for 10 minutes and the whole place goes to hell. I think that sums up how Mark Millar felt. He just felt like, you guys did all that while I was away. And one thing I like about the first arc is, we get Ultimate Red Skull, who is Captain America's son in this universe. Again, good ideas using the Ultimate Universe line to its nth degree without doing what Loeb and some of the others did and try to make him closer to 616. He's like, no, we don't need to do that. And yeah, it's some interesting stuff. We bring in Tony Stark having a brother, and we have War Machine, and we also have Cap on the run from S.H.I.E.L.D. because he's trying to find his son. And I love how we have what's known as Nerd Hulk. And basically he even asks, like, wait a minute, are you a combination of Banner's brain and the Hulk's body? Yes, but I don't see what that's got to do with kicks him right in the balls. Which is funny that he did that once before. And then what does Cap say? You idiots, and you took away his edge, you idiots. Now, I'm a big fan of Professor Hulk, and that's kind of what this is a nod for, but I could kind of disagree with that. But in this version, yeah, it's kind of apt. And then, basically, they're trying to go for the Cosmic Cube, which ties into one of the Ultimate Fantastic Four story arcs, saying, the end of it, they deal with the Red Skull, he's off the board, and then it turns out all this was done by Fury to get his job back with S.H.I.E.L.D. Next, then, we get things a bit more off the rails. Like, we find out there's an original Hulk that was the Banner's mentor. We deal with Ghost Rider. I will be right back. Sorry about that. Where was I? All right. And then it dealt with that, and you also had a Dick Cheney kind of XP as the as another version of Ghost Rider. Yeah, so, and you had the Punisher in this, which I found interesting. Though this Punisher's a bit more cuckoo compared to mainstream Punisher, and that's saying a lot. Then you bring in, at first you're seeing you get a new Daredevil. Not really. But you do get Blade, and you get vampires, and artwork by Steve Dillon. May he rest in peace. And, yeah, and then you also love how you actually have Nerd Hulk trying to show himself off, and he ends up getting bitten and turned into a vampire. And then he takes over the vampire. You have vampirism and gamma blood. Actually makes him badass. And even Cap gets bitten by the new Daredevil. The other Daredevil was killed off during Ultimatum. They didn't really do much with the character at all. And then, but turns out Steve's, and yes, Steve becomes a vampire, but turns out his blood from the super soldier serum is able to combat it and eventually turns him back to normal. Hulk takes over everything, and then basically they go into a big attack, and once they would get it, they bring in one of the bad guys from Ultimates 2 named Prius, who is basically the Russian version of Thor, and he actually gets some nice character development. Then he's just killed off. Pointless. But then by the very end of it all, then and by the end of it all, we then have them take care of all the vampires. They're all killed off. The Triskelion, the big base, is sent to I think the Middle East. And then we, once they're all dealt with, we then get into the New Ultimates versus the Ultimate Avengers, which ends up leading to, they're basically fighting each other. They're dealing with a machination of, this time instead of Loki, it's by Gregory Stark, Tony Stark's brother. And by the end of it all, because it's all tied into Death of Spider-Man, Spider-Man shot and wounded by Punisher. And I just love that. Where the burp did he come from? And then by the end of it all, Spidey does die. They deal with the threat with Gregory and everyone. And at the very end of it all, they, Carol Danvers, Carol Danvers is kicked out. She's no longer part of, and the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it has all happened under her watch. And basically, Fury's back in charge. Spidey's dead, unfortunately, and that's one of the things used against Carol. But in the end, it's good to be back, and it ends with "Daddy's home, baby, hoo-ha!" Just imagine Sam Jackson say that, hoo-ha! And for what this was, it was a good way of trying to get things back on track for the Ultimate Universe after what Loeb did and was kind of doing at the same time, and it was still fun. I really appreciated what he did. For part of the reason why I got this big book, because this is basically what really Ultimate 3 should have been. And yeah, it got things back on track, and then other writers would use it, and then eventually the Ultimate Universe got ended, but what are you going to do? Next, we've got all of his other projects, I'll just say. Let's first start off with American Jesus. Yeah. Basically, a 12-year-old is the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, even though that's technically not how it works. But, yeah, and it's basically dealing with him trying to come to acceptance with that. And at the very end, we find out that he's being sent not to see God, but Satan. Satan, or the Antichrist anyway, is the President of the United States. And it turns out this book and the Funnies are both tied into something else. Wanted. Don't think about the movie, just focus on this. This is basically, what if the supervillains got rid of all the heroes and took over? And there's this big conspiracy, which explains why the Antichrist is the president. They're keeping that under wraps. And yeah, it's basically a very interesting story about it all and everything, dealing with a guy who's finding out who his father was, and then he's trying to help bring everything down. And yeah, it's fun. I mean, I'm just breezing through this all. Like I said, the movies, it basically took out the superhero side of all this, but this concept on its own villains taking over after a crisis event happened is clever. That is very clever. The execution, there's a reason why some people are kind of hot and cold on it, but for what it was fine. Oh, one Marvel book I forgot to take. Trouble. Here's a attempt at bringing back romance. I'll just sum it up this way. We start off with the teenage sexual escapades of Richard and Mary Parker and Ben and May Parker eventually. Yep. And Peter's parents plus Uncle Ben and Aunt May are basically shagging. At the very end we find out Aunt May gets knocked up by Richard. She is Peter's real mom because Mary is barren. Yeah. Aunt May is really Peter's mom. What? The Avengers would say this was part of the ultimate history instead of the mainstream history, but either way, what? What kind of idea? I don't get it. And not that though, they have it beat at his mom looks like very much like Gwen, and Aunt May used to look very much like Mary Jane. Right down to his mom having the black headband. What? I mean, Terry Dotson's artwork is great. Great cheesecake and everything. But this, words fail me. Words completely fail me. That's all I can say. Now let's get to one of the big ones. Kick-Ass. 1, 2, 3, and Hit Girl. The idea of it, now if you've seen the movies, throw it out the window. The movies are a lot less cynical than these. One of the big differences, the girl that becomes his girlfriend in the first movie, yeah, they don't get together in this book. In fact, in the movie, because she thinks he's gay and that's why she lets him get close. But in the movie, he reveals who he is as Kick-Ass and all that part, and he's not gay earlier on, makes it a bit more understandable. And they get together in the book. It happens at the very end. She's pissed off and has her boyfriend beat the shit out of him. Yeah. Then you also have the fact with Big Daddy and Hit Girl in the movie. Oh, that superhero origin of theirs of his wife getting killed and all that, completely legitimate. In this, not so much. It was all bullshit. Yeah. But for what it was, this notion of a kid trying to be a real superhero and everything that's going against him. I mean, it's definitely one of the big cases of a pushing down just everything that's going wrong, but I still like it. I think Dave's an endearing character, bit of an ass, yes, but hey, obviously the big standout was Hit Girl. I love the little brat. And there's a reason why then she got her own, miniseries. That was a prelude. And then she got more and more prominent as it went on. And then you have Chloe Grace Moritz's performance in the movies. And there you go. Sadly, especially because of her, she's kind of aged out of the role. And I don't know if we'll ever get a Kick-Ass 3, especially how 2 went. But yeah. Again, how things go eventually once they go to 2 and 3. And 3 wraps things up very nicely, actually. I actually like how 3 wraps up, where just most of the loose ends are dealt with and things move on. What else can one say? I mean, it's bloody. John Romita Jr.'s artwork is at some of its best. And, they work together. And Hit Girl is a great character. She knows she tries to be good, but she's only doing what she's good at. And Dave, he's trying to actually get out of it, but he wants to do good, but at the same time he's like, I'm getting in more and more over my head. And then now everything starts to ruin his life more and more. But by the end of it, they're all happy. Everything's going good. And in a way that's still over the top, but still a little bit believable. A little bit. And again, these characters, there's a reason why people really like them. Maybe they're seeing more of their movie counterparts who know it, but for me, I think Dave and Mindy are still a very cute pair. Then, Nemesis. basically what if Batman was the Joker or the Joker was Batman, but in this case, he went a bit way overboard. Now, this is when you have Steve McNiven. That's something he keeps on doing. He keeps on getting all these artists to do all this stuff, and yeah, he goes way overboard with how much of a bastard Nemesis is. And by the time we get to issue 3, where he abducts basically the Commissioner Gordon XP's daughter and does horrible things to her and his son, that you're like, I don't care anymore. And then at the very, very end, you find out, oh, it's not what we thought. And it came as an interesting idea that never got followed up on, and I still don't know if he's ever going to do a Nemesis 2 or not. But, yeah, I'll just say this. It's an interesting idea, great artwork, and not a few nice twists and turns, but by the time you get to the very, very end, it's just like, don't care. Don't really care much. You know, about the characters, I mean. And at the end, it's just like, okay, it's done. I'm at least grateful it lasted 4 issues. Again, it's not bad in its own way. But at the same time, though, it's also, nah. I mean, it's one of those how can I put this? It's one of those double-edged swords, I guess you could say. You like it for when it's good, but when it's all of the other factors you got to acknowledge, and then it's like, yeah. But this, superior. I love the Christopher Reeves and Richard Donner Superman, and with a bit of Shazam thrown in. Basically, this kid with multiple sclerosis is given an option by this space monkey to become with powers to become a hero. His favorite hero, Superior. Basically a Superman XP, and he starts to do everything he can to help save the world. And then, eventually, he loses those powers because he was only going to have it for a short time. But he does what he can with them. And it turns out the monkey is a devil. Or a demon, anyway. And he basically saying, I want your soul. And then the kid says, hell no, and hell to that. Then, basically, and the monkey says, okay, fine. I'll put him in a situation where he has to get the powers back. And become, and take my deal so we can save the day. And the kid does. And I love how we have like a Lois Lane XP who's actually an endearing character who actually, once she finds out the truth, she doesn't get mad. She actually understands that she feels bad for the kid. And yes, there's a few of his and Millar's dirty humor, but for the most part, it's still very good. At the very, very end, the way things go is, yeah. The poor stupid monkey should have looked more into what Superior's powers is, because Superior's ostensibly every cell in his body is immortal. Meaning, he'll never get that soul as long as the deal is in place. So in other words, he just made a deal he's never going to collect. Yeah, nice going, idiot. And yeah, he then ends up, leaving and getting dragged to hell. And the kid continues on with his life. And I love it. Him with the other woman, and she's very sweet to him. And then, very much a nod to Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner. The fly to the camera and the wink. I love that. This is definitely one of his best. Definitely one of his best. Then you have both that one and this one have Lionel Liu artwork. Super Crooks. Basically saying Ocean 11 but with superpowers. And that's basically what you got. These guys try to do the ultimate gig, the ultimate heist. And that's what it says, the heist against this guy known as just simply the Bastard. The guy who can make people's heads explode. And they actually pulled off. In a brilliant way, they pulled off much like Ocean's 11. And you first don't realize what the hell's going on. And then at the very end, you're like, what? And it makes sense then. If you like Ocean's 11 and you want to ever see it with superpowers, get this. That's basically what it is. In so many ways, and it's damn good. Next, I don't have the trade for this version, but still love it. Secret Service, aka What Become Kingsmen, with Dave Gibbons. this is just, if you've seen Kingsman, there's drastic differences, but there's also good similarities, and similar thing of a juvenile delinquent kid is brought in by a uncle or a mentor figure, brought into the service, ends up turning out he's very good at it, ends up becoming one of the best, and then stops a world destruction, plan, but it was very James Bond-like. And then at the very end, he's now just constantly helping out. He's a regular member of the group, and I liked it as well in its own very interesting way. It was fun, exciting. Dave Gibbons' artwork is always good. What more can you want? Now these last ones. Okay, first there's Starlight. Basically, take Flash Gordon with a bit of Incredibles. What if Flash Gordon had won the day, went back to Earth, got married, had kids, grew old, and then he was brought back into service one more time to help out. And yeah, that's basically what this is, and it's fun. It's one of the lighter stories. In fact, this is what I want to get into. Not long after Man of Steel, apparently that traumatized Mark Millar to the point where he stopped doing the darker edger because he did not like seeing his favorite superhero, Superman, go through all that. So from my understanding, he's trying to lighten things up a lot more and more, and this definitely shows it. I enjoy this, but then once we get into these last ones, I bought about these trades in bulk, and so many times I haven't had a chance to read all of them, unfortunately. Two of which is because I was going to wait for the other trades, and then they just monetary prevented from me, and now I can't seem to find the trades. Jupiter Circle and Jupiter Legacy, where basically it takes the notion of the kids of the world's greatest heroes. It also deconstructs the notion of the Reed Richards is useless trope, and then Reed puts it back together from what I understand. I only got the first volumes of each, so I don't know how they both wrap up, but you have Frank Whiteley artwork here, and then you have Wilfredo Torres and Divide Gila Feliz, and basically it's the notion of just, and this was a prequel setting up a lot of the characters and their heroes, and then we see them later as older and they're focusing on their kids, and just an interesting idea that's, hold on a second, sorry about that, the dog's busted in. But anyway, like I was saying, it's still very and they're still very, what I've read so far of them are very interesting. It's been a while since I've read through them. I hope to eventually get the other trades someday, so I can finish them up and know how things turn out. But for the first halves, they're actually good. Especially this case really shows why you don't want someone with a super brain who doesn't really know everything in charge of economies. Now these two, I will admit, I haven't had a chance to read them. I've skimmed through them, but they are still very interesting. Chrononauts, which is Sean Gordon Murphy artwork, and basically it deals with time travel. That's the best way I've been able to go through, is what I've read through it, and it's still a very fun adventure type story, and great artwork by Sean Gordon Murphy. Then you have MPH, which him and Duncan Fergarito, and basically it is kids from Detroit. They take the street drug called MPH and gives them super speed, and eventually it leads into other stuff. And basically the thing with Mark Millar by this point is he's coming with a lot of ideas that can become great movies or TV shows. In fact, Jupiter's Legacy is about to become a Netflix show, and he's starting to do all this stuff with Netflix. So it's kind of worked out for him. He's openly admitted that's one of the things he's constantly doing, is trying to come up with new movie properties. More power to him. He's come up with a lot of good ideas. Some of them are XPs, of course, of regular heroes, but or established heroes. Other cases, still some nice ideas. And so long as he has someone who's able to keep him a bit reined in, and sorry, the dogs again, but keep him reined in and not go too far off the rail. And I think again, after Man of Steel, I don't think he's going to go back anymore. So yeah, that's with Mark Millar. Like I said, as time went on, he's become less about the shock value, more about very good characters, and yeah, he's a very imaginative guy. Look at some of those stuff I showed you. Very good ideas. Or taking ideas and mishmashing them together and coming up with some very good concepts. And what he's done with some of the other characters, if he really loves the characters, he does wonders. He might sometimes simplify other characters, but in the end, it's still very, very fun. And I wish him the best. Keep on working, doing more. And that's about all I can say. That's all I have to say on Mark Millar. I try to hurry up before the dogs try to get in, or start barking. So I'll just say, no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow. Probably finally get to doing Shazam or some other comic review. But until then, I have nothing. Catch you all later. See ya.